Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the show where a real statistics professor and his friends give you sports betting tips. I'm your host, Professor Sides. That's my actual job title and last name, which is part of the reason why the mathematical model that I've built to predict various sports outcomes is affectionately known as Sideline. You'll hear more about the model during the course of this episode, set to cover the 7 best college basketball games and one off-the-wall game scheduled to be played on Wednesday, February 22nd, 2023. In case you're new, check out the webpage on the banner. It's www.pickswiththeprofessor.com/new. For some explanations and community rules, see the Google Sheet linked in the show description for sidelines projections on every single game. Remember, this show covers picks on the biggest games for the best picks on all games. Sign up on Patreon or Black Book Sports for all those 8-grade picks, plays of the day, stuff like that. There are different packages and price ranges based on your needs. Remember that sports are unpredictable, so the discussion on the show is projecting an average game and not trying to forecast an individual game. Take that long-term view on here. We don't get distracted. When one team either can't hit or can't miss from 3, these things balance out in the long run, but are hard to foresee before they happen. In other words, please understand that good and bad variance will occur. So as much as I'd like to say we'll be profitable each and every day, that is an impossible reality for any gambler. Jake, nice to have you back here. That way we can go a little deeper into some of these games instead of me just speeding through them, you know?
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. It'll be a lot of fun. Have a lot of knowledge and we'll get into. Maybe a little disagreement here or there.
Yes, we do have one of those on deck. It should be a lot of fun. I don't even know why you disagree with me, and you don't know why I disagree with you. I don't even know why I think what I think on some of these, to be honest. We just make it up as we go. We just have a lot of fun around here. That's not completely true. But it should be a lot of fun. But before we get to that, some reminders. Please hit that like button if you're on YouTube. Also, if you aren't yet, please consider subscribing or following. It's free. And if you turn notifications on, you won't miss any of the college basketball, MLB, or college football content that this channel provides. I've already mentioned Patreon, but check it out if you haven't yet. There are a lot of great benefits to be found over there above and beyond what we do here. We got the plays of the day. We've got the Discord chat group, which is the place to get questions answered about these games, other sports, people giving what they think about tennis and golf and NASCAR and who the heck knows what's going on over there. It's a lot of fun in that Discord chat. Again, I always think that's worth your price of admission right there. Got ad-free shows, early access to projections, got all sorts of goodies over there. Check it out at www.patreon.com/picturewiththeprofessor for more details. But even if you're not there, I'm still thrilled that you are here. Let's get to it. But as always, take what you like and leave the rest. Jake, we're going to start off hot with that disagreement right here. 6:30 p.m. Eastern, Providence at UConn. You know, there's no pick officially. There's no line on the screen there. We're going to duel this one out. I am on UConn laying 7.5. You are on Providence getting the points. And Jake, I'll let you start first as to why you like getting points with Providence.
I think this will be an incredible game, but it's really Big East play has been not very kind to UConn. Their offense has really fallen off. Their refs are not near as kind. They're not getting to the line as much, and they are fouling a lot, and that's going to really feed into what Providence does well. They rank near the bottom in Big East of 3-point and 2-point percentage. Their effective field goal percentage is going down, so it's sub 50, so that's going to mean more than half their shots are very tough shots, not very good ones because their offense isn't running as smooth. They've developed a turnover issue, and that is going to really hinder them in winning this game by more than 7. I think Providence is a very good team, even on the road. They're hitting their free throws really well. They're starting making threes at a higher clip, and they do a good job of keeping their opponents off the glass. Now, I don't know how well that's going to work with UConn because UConn does hit the offensive glass really, really well. So I think that battle will determine the game. I think UConn still wins this game. I just think it's 5 or less. I just think the slow pace that both these teams want to play will make it really tough in winning this by 8 to 10 or whatever, unless somebody just gets hot.
Yeah. Obviously, we aren't discussing who we think is going to win the game. I think we all kind of agree that UConn is likely to win. That doesn't mean Providence can't, but the biggest question here is how much they win by, what percentage of the time they win if you're a money line player, right? Those are the questions that we're asking here. And you're right, 7.5 is a lot of points, so I would disagree with that. Sideline says 8.8 gives UConn minus 7.5 a B grade, so the model likes that side. If it drops to 7, the model would give UConn an A grade play. That's personally where I'd want to wait for it to at 7, just because we always talk about 7 being kind of a key pivot number where it's easier to get the 7, land on 7. It's again not a key number in college basketball. There's no real thing as key numbers in college basketball. But it's as key can get, and that's a lot of times where teams will stop fouling. Doesn't mean won't stop at 6 or 8 or 9 or whatever. 7 is slightly more common than those other numbers. So at 7, I'm a little more excited about it. This game will definitely have slower pace. I've got both of these teams right around 200 in terms of pace out of 363 teams. So a little bit slower of a pace. Both teams really good. Of note, I thought was interesting. We've had 8 A-grade plays fading UConn this year. 0-8 in those. So at some point, I feel like when I faded UConn, I've gotten some people in the comments, hating on me for fading UConn. I'm like, but the blah, blah, blah. I don't know what I've said. Every time, I feel like I've been wrong. So I feel like personally, I'm just like, I just don't want to fade UConn anymore. Obviously, those are the A-grade fades. They have not covered at times, but, they are a really good team. They are up and down. I'm really curious to watch this one and see, because UConn at the start, we talked about being one of the best teams in the country, looked like the runaway number 1 seed. And then as you mentioned, we talked about their struggles at the start of conference play. They've really, gone downhill. Really since that started, and lately maybe getting it back together a little bit. I'm starting to be a little bit more impressed with them these last few games than before. Obviously, if you're going to peak, now is the right time to be heading on that upward trajectory, coming into what should be a brutal conference tournament, of course. Night in and night out should be a bunch of tough games, and a lot of fun over there in Madison Square Garden. It should be a really good game, in that I think Providence is unlikely to get blown out. Question is, can UConn win by? Are they going by 5? Are they going by 10? Jake, you think more like 5. The model thinks more like 10. So we're a little split on that one. So hopefully that's some good information to tell you how to play that one. As an FYI, the total in this one, 144.5. Model says 144.8. It has been pretty spot on with both these teams. I think it's pretty well priced total in the mid 140s. So a game that I don't think is well priced on the total, Marshall at James Madison. We're going to go over 155.5 on this one. The model only says 154.5. So the model thinks it's pretty well priced. But while James Madison has been a little bit of an under team as of late, they've been kind of a slightly under team, very minorly. Marshall has been flying over. Marshall has just been playing with their pants on fire, basically. Both of these teams are going to play with a pretty fast pace. I've got Marshall at 13th in the country, James Madison at 37th. James Madison offense a little bit behind Marshall, but there's just going to be so many possessions in this game. You're just going to have a hard time preventing scoring, because nobody's going to try to slow this down. It doesn't make any sense for either team to try to slow it down. It'd be out of their comfort zones, out of their styles. You want to slow Marshall down, but James Madison doesn't want to slow anybody down. So the fact that both these teams just want to go so fast, there should be a lot of possessions in this one. And the fact that Marshall's been flying over so many of these totals, I think it's the right side to back here. So we're going to go over 155.5. The side's priced pretty well. Right now, James Madison is a 1-point favorite. The model says they should be 2.1-point favorites. Been pretty spot on with both these teams. So I think that 2's pretty right. If I had to, I'd lay the 1 with James Madison. They've been mostly good to us on the season. On all of our plays on them, we're 14-7. We backed them. So they've still been pretty good to us here as of late. They covered for us on Saturday as an A-grade play. I'd be the side I'd be on, but at -1, it's just not – I don't think it's the greatest investment. Marshall's pretty good. Marshall's probably the slightly better team in general. So either team could win. I expect a lot of points. Might even get overtime in this one, which would make this – with an overtime, this feels like a game that might get up towards 200 or something crazy if we add an extra 5 minutes to it. Jake, what do you got for us on this one?
Look, I don't know on the offensive end if Marshall knows the shot clock goes below 15, because I don't know that they've seen it all year. This, like you said, this is just pace. The offenses outmatch the defenses everywhere here. So it's a lot of quality, a lot of possessions, a lot of quality possessions. Don't get the last game confused. Both teams shot just absolutely poorly, and especially from the free throw line. I think James Madison hit 53%, and that was the better of the two. And there was a lot of free throws shot. I just don't think that there's really going to be stopping anybody. And the way they do stop both these teams, the way they do stop teams is they force turnovers, which leads to easy buckets, which would help us on the total. There's everything right here plays out to get this up to close to 165, 170. Should be a fantastic game to watch if you like points. And it should be a very, very competitive game too.
Yeah, in that first game here, first off, that was on New Year's Eve, and so I don't know if that affected anything with players. Who knows where their brains were. Marshall also shot 24% from three. So, I mean, you just had a bonkers kind of weird game that still basically got to 140 with everything going wrong. So it's like if things go like normal, again, that probably gets you more to like the 160, which is again probably where we land on this one, somewhere in the 160s. And if things go right, like I said, this is getting into the 170s, 180s. If things go really well, if teams get hot, if it becomes as fun as we hope it is, it's got a chance to be just a crazy scoring game, which is obviously more fun to watch, for most of us. So we like the over there in Marshall at James Madison. 7 p.m. Eastern, also Syracuse at Clemson. We're going to lay the 3 with Clemson here. This is an A-grade play according to the model, which says this should be Clemson minus 5.1. We've been slightly overestimating both of these teams. So I think that balances out. I think we're getting some value here. Clemson minus 3 kind of implies that these two teams are about the same. But I've got Clemson as the better team here. Better team at home. Clemson plays pretty well at home. As do I kind of always talk about this. As do most of these bigger teams play better at home and weaker on the road. It's not like it's an aberration to just your school. I know just your school is the worst team on the road. It's like in baseball, right? Your team has the worst bullpen. Every other bullpen, so your team's right. Every team is worse on the road and better at home. Clemson's no exception. They play really well at home. I think they're the better team. I think laying 3 is a gift. It's an A-grade play that I wholeheartedly endorse. The best unit on the court is going to be their defense. Worst unit on the court is going to be Syracuse's defense. We talked a lot about Syracuse and how they don't play defense. We saw that Saturday against Duke where they just did not stand a chance. Clemson, probably not as good as Duke, but if that Syracuse defense plays just as bad, then Clemson at home shouldn't have any problem winning by somewhere between 5 and 10. Total is 143. Model says 145. Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, it just really depends what Clemson team do we get, right? Do you get the one that beat Florida State by 40, or do you get the one that lost to Louisville by 10? I know it's on the road.
It's a good bounce back spot. We can spin this.
yeah, it's a great bounce back spot. Coming back home, this number being so short, I really and it being in Clemson really makes Clemson the smart play. Their defense, like you said, the best unit on the floor. Syracuse is really going to have a tough time. They force a lot of threes, which kind of leans into one of Syracuse's strengths, but I also think it's a weakness when you shoot that many threes and have to shoot it that well. They're going to have a tough time. You don't have to – it's a common misnomer. You think you shoot teams out of a zone. 1, you're not getting behind to leave the zone, but 2, inside out is how you work it. Duke is the most recent example of that. They just – all the lobs to Derek Lively, and, I mean, Clemson's got the athletes. Clemson's got very good guards. I really think they got the offense to really break down that zone and the defense to really throw Syracuse for loops. I think they'll win this by 5 to 10 range.
Yeah, and I mentioned it on the previous episode when we took Louisville this week and won that one. Got a little sweaty at the end, but I mean, Louisville was down 10 with a minute to go. I mean, that was a fairly easy win. It talked about how I had an A-grade play on Louisville on Saturday against Clemson. So, it's a situation where, like I said, good bounce back spot here. If we had picked Clemson in that one, maybe I'm a little more concerned where it's clearly there's a little bit of bias. But I mean, I was against Clemson there, and now it's just the numbers overreacted. And that wasn't a good performance whatsoever. But, you overlook a team like that, and Louisville's, again, been playing – again, they're not good, but they've been playing much better as of late. You overlook them, whatever, and now we've overreacted. Again, this number should be out in the 5 range like the model thinks, and so laying 3 is a great investment. Yeah. 7 p.m. Eastern, Kentucky at Florida. You'll notice no pick on this one as well. A little bit of a disagree, a little bit of there's questions on this one. So we did this a couple weeks ago. We kind of talked about a game and broke it down a little bit, but there's just some big questions with Florida without Castleton. Obviously, he's their best player. However, if you look at what happened this weekend, they aren't that bad without him, because if they were that good with him and that bad without him, that makes him probably able to go into the NBA right now and be on the All-Star team, right? He's not worth that much, but we don't really know at this point how it's going to affect. It's one of those where we just want to see a little bit more data on this before being really confident. I think Florida's the smart play. The model knows that Castleton is out and still thinks this is a pick 'em. So the model would indicate that grabbing 2.5 points, which is where the number is right now, would be a pretty smart investment in Florida. Again, even with Castleton out, they still have a decent team. They still have a good enough defense at home to more or less slow Kentucky down. Their offense, not good, but it's not like Kentucky's got a good defense relative to SEC standards, right? So it at home feels like a kind of a coin toss. A game that at Kentucky, obviously, they probably wouldn't stand a chance. But at home, even without Castleton, they should be able to hang around, thinks anything can happen. Model says this is a bit of an overreaction to that game, that, again, that Castleton can't mean that much to his team. But with just that one piece of data, it's not the most comfortable play to make to back Florida at this point, unless you were getting a lot of points. 2.5 isn't a ton. So gonna skip playing this one, observe, see what happens. If we watch this and it looks like, again, I think Florida still got some talent. They're not terrible. They still got a good defense. If they can frustrate Kentucky, hang around, we can come back at this and say, yes, hey, the model nailed it, that Castleton important but can't be that important. And if they get trounced, we really got to start maybe reevaluating just how much he is, how good Castleton really is. Because based off Saturday, he looks like maybe the best player in the world, based off how bad Florida looks at him. So a lot to learn here. Jake, you have an angle on this game as well. What's that?
Yeah, I think Kentucky, I've been tricked before and all that. I think they're starting to figure something out. Xavier Wheeler being hurt is addition by subtraction. It's not that he's a bad player. He's a really good player. It's just a really good player on the wrong team. He doesn't fit this team like he fit last year's team. Because like Carson Wallace, he's just taking up minutes that need to be given somewhere else. And especially if Frederick comes back, they can be a very dangerous team. And I think Florida's going to be scrambling. It's not because Castleton is that great. He's a very, very, very good player. But I think his usage rate was pretty high, and I don't know that they've got enough time to get a new game plan in without him. And so that's like maybe in a couple weeks, we see this Florida team, because he's out for the rest of the regular season. That's probably postseason too, but we see this Florida team step back up, and they're dangerous in the tournament. But this would be a complete change of how they want to play, because without him, I think they're going to try to play faster, and that leads to turnovers. They were a bad rebounding team beforehand. Lose the 7-foot guy, I don't see how that improves your rebounding. But then again, Kentucky's offense can just disappear at times. Their defense can be very lackadaisical. They'll just turn the ball over. I mean, they've lost to Georgia. I mean, Georgia's pretty bad. So I don't know. I mean, the play I'll probably make is probably the under on this game, but I'm staying away from the side because you don't really know what Florida's going to do or what Kentucky team's showing up.
Yeah, very well said. The total in this one is about 141. Model says 141.7. So the model's kind of question marks too. But I think you brought up some great points there with regards to the pace and how these teams are going to play. Florida's offense taking a huge step back, but maybe they're going to play a little faster. So maybe that balances out, which one matters more. I mean, this is one of those games where we talk about part of the point of this show is to give good picks, right? Part of hopefully it's an enjoyable half hour of your life. Part of it is to help get you thinking, asking the right questions. This one, there's a lot of questions to ask. Mm-hmm. And if you feel like you've got some answers to it, fire away, because hopefully some of these questions can kind of lead you down a path based off how you react to the questions we're asking. But this one has just so many questions that I don't really know the answers to all of them. I think we're going to kind of sit back and observe. We don't have to play every game. But if you feel like you've got an answer to some of those, there are some good avenues of ways to go, some value to be found out there if you kind of think one thing or the other based off of how we talked about that. But a lot of uncertainty with how Florida is really going to try to play. And again, you never quite know exactly what Kentucky team's going to show up as well. 7:30 Eastern, a little bit of small school action here. Indiana State at Belmont, a Missouri Valley game. You've got a 20-9 Indiana State team and a 19-10 Belmont team. You got two teams here really vying for a spot in March Madness. Neither will make it as an at-large, but if either one of these teams wins the conference tournament, they're going to be an interesting team to watch. I like both of these schools. Indiana State has just been playing out of their minds as of late, really overperforming versus the model versus the spread, everything. Belmont's been a pretty solid team, consistent with what we've thought. But I'm going to back Indiana State here. I'm going to grab the 1.5. Model says this is a coin toss game, but if we're still missing on Indiana State, maybe Indiana State should be favored. I've got them as the better team by a decent amount. So obviously it's a road game. Belmont will be fired up for this one, knowing how big this is for seeding purposes for the conference tournament. But I just really like what I've seen from this Indiana State team. It should be a lot of pace. Which should make it fun. Should be a lot of offense, not a lot of defense. But to me, the biggest differentiator is that all four of these units, both offenses and defenses, are all about the same, with the exception of Belmont's defense, which is pretty bad. And so that being the only differentiating unit, I think Indiana State can get the win on the road, giving me a 1.5 just for funsies. But I think Indiana State gets the win. Total in this one, 151. Model says 153. And has actually been underestimating Belmont totals. So maybe a little bit of an overlean as well. If you like to play total, should be a lot of points. Like I said, a lot of pace, a lot of offense. And Belmont's defense should get you to the over, and Indiana State to the victory. Jake, what do you got?
Yeah, conference play has been great to the Indiana State team. They've really improved. Their defense has been the biggest improvement. They guard the three-point arc very well. They do a great job of keeping their opponents off the glass. Don't give up their opponents any second chances with turnovers or free throws. They just force them into a lot of one-on-one play, preventing any help and making it very hard to find shots. What's wild is, they still play a very fast pace, like a faster pace, but they've actually slowed it down in conference play, and I think that's helped improve their defense, giving them a little more time to set that defense up, help them not play so much scrambling, because that happens sometimes when you play at a fast pace. You end up scrambling and give up easy buckets, miss a player or something. Belmont has improved tremendously on the but not so much as Indiana State. They're just really struggling. They don't draw any fouls. They struggle to get these second chance opportunities that really help you get games, like these extra scoring opportunities, and they're losing the turnover battle. They don't draw any fouls. They shoot a lot of threes, and they don't rebound the ball particularly well. They're a good 3-point shooting team, and it's something. And they work their offense very well. They work so well together. They find a lot of open shots, and they hit most of them. I just don't think that's going to work very well against this Indiana State team who's playing just out of their mind right now. I think you're right. Indiana State should be favored. I thought they should be favored by 2, even on the road. So I really like taking them here. I'd probably play the money line.
Yeah, I think you're maybe even money, plus 105, something like that on the money line. Absolutely would agree with that. It mentioned Indiana State, the record, they're 13-5 in conference. They're a full game back of Drake and Bradley. You get a pretty solid Missouri Valley, one that's got some exciting games for sure. Love this conference, absolutely. Indiana State's won 7 in a row. They're one game back of Drake and Bradley, who've won 8 and 9 in a row. So the top of that conference has looked really strong. If you can be the 1 seed, you really have to like your chances there, because then the 2, not that the 4 will be bad, but whoever's the 2 and the 3 having to play each other of that trio, and not as exciting. Belmont's only a game behind Indiana State. So, there's a lot of teams log jammed up in that conference, a lot of talent up there. Big game here for Indiana State. They've won 7 in a row. I think they can keep it going here. Again, Belmont's defense, if it was better, that's a different story, but I just don't think it's good enough to keep them in this game, even though they are at home. Speaking of home teams that I just don't think got it, 9 p.m. Eastern, Iowa, Wisconsin. I don't know. We just keep fading Wisconsin, and why wouldn't we just keep doing it? I feel like weeks ago I said, all of our models still think Wisconsin's decent, but I keep watching them and they're not. And I don't know what's going wrong with them. They looked decent early on in the season. That's really the whole handicap is I've seen Wisconsin, Ohio State. They just don't look right. And the models and everything are kind of they're not bad. It's I don't know. I don't. They just don't look good for the most part. Iowa, not a great road team, but again, none of these teams really are great road teams. Most teams have a hard time on the road. Most of the time, you beat a decent team on the road, and it's just you're just happy to escape with a win. Winning on the road is difficult, but I just think Iowa is at least competent at this point. Still a top 5 offense. Obviously rely heavily on the 3 ball, but I just don't really have faith in Wisconsin doing anything. They're going to obviously try to slow this game down. Iowa's going to try to speed it up. So it should be a nice clash of styles there. But in a game that the model thinks is kind of a toss up, I'll lay the 1 with Iowa and just say, I just want to keep fading Wisconsin. It's been working. I don't see why we would stop. Total is 140. The model projects 144. lot of variance on this total. So the model would go over, but a lot of variance just based off of who controls the pace on this one. If Iowa gets hot, starts hitting threes, the game's going to go over. If they don't, Wisconsin takes the air to the ball, it's going to go under. And it might go over or under by a lot. Cousin Jared talks about alternate totals. This is one of those where if you like the alternate totals, I might go over a large number under a small number, because this feels like a game that could land at 125 or 160. And it wouldn't really surprise me because just such a clash of styles in this one. Jake, where's your head at?
Yeah, I wish this was last year or a couple years ago. This would have been a fun matchup this year. Whew. I mean, Iowa plays no defense, and that's not surprising. I mean, it's just worse than usual. And Wisconsin plays slower than almost any team out there and has a terrible offense to deal with it. They take their sweet time finding a highly contested shot and then forget to clean up and miss. The few occasions they get fouled, they miss it. They're missing over half their free throws. It's bad. Iowa State plays fast for the Big Ten, but it's really not that fast overall. And if they just forget to cross half court sometimes and don't play the defense, there's not going to be extra possessions here because neither team is going to turn the ball over. That's one thing they both do well, and neither defense is forcing a lot of turnovers. So I think Iowa is the better team. They've got a little more offense. I mean, I know they lost to Wisconsin beforehand, but that was without Chris Murray, so that adding that weapon in really helps, and it was still overtime. I think when it comes to the total, I'm probably with Cousin Jared on the under. I'm going to play under a small number because I think in Madison it'll be closer to Wisconsin style, and their lack of talent is just going to help them lose this game and keep it like maybe mid 130s. Maybe that overtime game was. The total of regulation was 120, and that was no Chris Murray. So give him 2 extra points there on the end, and Iowa wins by 2, and we're at 122 instead of getting the 140s in overtime.
Yeah, that game was back in early December. So the fact that Wisconsin won that game, no Chris Murray, sure. Also, that was a different Wisconsin team. That was back when Wisconsin was playing respectable. And I don't know. Like I said, I haven't felt like I've seen that from Wisconsin in quite some time. Rutgers, who had been kind of struggling, just went into Wisconsin and won. I don't really see why Iowa wouldn't be able to do the same thing. It's a nice bounce back spot here for Iowa after that Northwestern loss. It's the zigzag theory, right? Which it's not so much that I prescribe to it explicitly all the time blindly, but there is a lot to be said for remember that a team is never as good as they just looked or as bad as they just looked if they played really good or bad. And Iowa looked pretty bad against Northwestern. That's the last thing on everyone's mind. I think there's a little bit of value in this number because that's what's on the forefront of our mind. That's just one game. I think there's some value here because Wisconsin's been playing like that for 2 months now or a month and a half or whatever for the most part. Iowa's still up and down like most college teams are with 19-year-old kids. We got a chance for good Iowa showing up. I don't know how good of a chance we have for good Wisconsin showing up. So I like Iowa.
We also forget that Northwestern's good now. Also, they're skyrocketed to the second in the Big Ten. It's been crazy.
Also true. Northwestern with just reeling off wins, one after another after another. Between there and Kansas State, right? You got 2 good Coach of the Year candidates that are neck and neck. Obviously, Kansas State kind of needs to turn it around here. The Tuesday games haven't happened yet, so we don't know how they fared against Baylor as of the time of this recording. But just what a job that's being done there at Northwestern. So like you said, not really the final score was bad, but that they lost is not the end of the world. I think people are just overreacting to it. That's kind of what we've seen all the time from Wisconsin. If we get good Iowa, they'll run away. Even if we don't get good Iowa, it's probably going to be an ugly, tight basketball game, but we still got a chance to win. So I always love those games where you can say, if this happens, we win. If it doesn't happen, still got a 50-50 shot at it. So in a lot of ways, I think we can get to this one. Iowa -1, a pretty smart pick. Late game here for you before we get to our off-the-wall one, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, New Mexico at Boise State. I'm really looking forward to this game, mainly because I don't know about these two teams at all. I don't know what to do with them. They're both good. I guess I think Boise's a better team, and they're at home. They're favored by 6. Model says 6. I think 6 is a pretty good number. sometimes when Boise struggles to put teams away and win by big enough numbers, so I'm a little bit hesitant to lay the 6. New Mexico, I don't know what to make of them. They got Jalen House back in their last game, but I watched that game. I've watched a lot of New Mexico here. They're a lot of fun to watch. And let me tell you, it wasn't just about him. I mean, they just couldn't miss. Their shots were more open shots, and he allows some of that. But again, it's like we said with Castleton, right? Like one guy is not worth 30 points or something like that, right? That makes him, LeBron James caliber, better than LeBron James caliber, probably, well, in his peak, or better than peak Michael Jordan, right? I guess we're aging ourselves. Go with LeBron James. Maybe we'll have to figure out who the new young whippersnapper is, right? But I'm just trying to age myself left and right here. They looked a lot better. How much of that was him? How much of that was just one game in that last one? I don't really know what to make of New Mexico at this point. They started off so good. They definitely looked lost for a little bit. Are they back on track now? Is House really the spark plug? I think he makes them a lot better. He's no different than what Miles does for TCU. So he absolutely makes them a lot better, gives them a lot better looks. I'm not sure that it's 50 points in the first half every night, though. And so I just don't know how much to react to that against a good Boise State team at Boise State, a Boise State team that's got a top 15 defense, according to my model. So I'm not sure on the side. I think Boise -6 is a pretty good number. So going to pass there and instead go over 145.5. I did mention, of course, that Boise State's got a great defense, but New Mexico is going to take this game over with their incredible pace. They've been a massive over team. The model's still been reacting, going over. They still are continuing to overperform with number of points scored and allowed both. We've been pretty spot on with Boise State totals. So when you combine that, the model projects 145. But when you combine the fact that we've been pretty spot on with Boise and we continue to underrate New Mexico, I really think 150 is about where this lands, somewhere in that ballpark. I think we can get to the upper 140s, maybe low 150s. I expect a lot of points. Got a shot for overtime, got a shot for late game fouls. And New Mexico has to play their fast-paced game to have a chance in this one. Boise, of course, wants to rely a little bit more on defense, but they're still going to score plenty on New Mexico, given that New Mexico doesn't play much defense at all relative to these standards. So we like the over in this one. Jake, what do you got?
Yeah, look, February had not been kind to New Mexico. They've lost 4 of their 5 games, and the last one, the one they didn't, was that domination of San Jose State. But I don't know how much that is to brag about beating them like that.
San Jose State, they're decent.
Yeah, they're decent. It's I don't know. They've the Mountain West exposed their defense. The offense stayed right about the same level, and they've actually been in conference play. Like I know Utah State, everybody talks about how much they make threes and all that. New Mexico's actually been making them at a higher clip in conference play, which is kind of impressive because it's up around 40%. I mean, their offense is doing well. It's just their defense is letting them down. That pace, they're going to have that pace because you do not want this Boise State defense getting set up and playing against it. They want to play fast. They want to get going. They may try to force the pace too much. That might give some extra turnovers. That leads to easy buckets from Boise, all helping us get over this total. Boise's offense, it keeps being underrated, and I don't understand it. They are doing very, very well on the offensive end. I mean, their defense is great, and it's a lot better, but their offense is still very good. They've got a very balanced offense. They've got 5 guys, they're 5 starters that average over double digits, and then Marcus Shaver is a player to watch. He's the biggest name on that team. He's the driving force behind that offense. He leads in rebounds, assists, and steals, second in scoring. I just think Boise probably ends up being too much for New Mexico, but I think we're going to get a lot of points. I just don't know if it's that 6. I really wanted that at 5, but 6 is hard. So stay away from the side, but love the over.
Yeah, absolutely. And that'll take us to our overtime segment. A really off-the-wall game here. Pretty solid Wednesday slate. There are definitely some smaller schools. We're not going to the 6-digit games. We're just going to Evansville, who is bad. I've got them at about, I think, 15th worst in the country, a bottom 10 offense, and their defense isn't that much better. We're going to lay the 1.5 with UIC. Model says this should be 3. It's a B grade play according to Sideline. But Evansville's just so bad. I think UIC can go on the road and win. And then as long as we avoid a 1-point victory, we're winning this one. Obviously, -1's a little bit safer. We had them as an A-grade play on Sunday, I believe, and they did win by 1. And so we laid 1 and pushed. I think this is a better situation for them, though. I think they can end up pulling away on this one, winning by somewhere between 5 and 10, just because Evansville is just so terrible. I don't think that they can hang in this with UIC. Not that UIC is great, but their offense is better. Their defense is better. There should be plenty of possessions, and those extra possessions are going to help us to expose how bad Evansville is. We always talk about bad teams wanting to slow it down. Evansville doesn't believe in that philosophy, and UIC is not that great, and they don't believe in it either. But this is one where Evansville should be trying to slow it down, minimize the possessions, create a higher variance game to get them a chance to win. But with all the extra possessions that are going to happen, I think it just exposes how bad Evansville is on offense. They're going to get extra possessions and not be able to do anything with them. And so we think UIC wins this one. Laying a 1.5 is a pretty solid investment. Jake, what you got?
Yeah, like this Evansville team's so bad. Their defense is bad. Their offense is even worse. Just somehow hard. Like the fact that they have won a game in the new year is wild to me, that they beat Northern Iowa by 12. It's like, I don't know. Like they've had. I just think this number is too short, because when they play games, it's rarely a single-digit game. I think I counted 4 since the years turned over. It's the rest of them. I mean, there's several times they're losing by 30, 25 plus to 30. I don't see UIC beating them by that, but I think this is a 5 to 10 point win for them. They play at a fast pace, and they're not good at it. They don't find open shots. They give up way too many open shots. Teams are hitting almost 40% from beyond the arc against them. That means you're just not there. You're giving them open threes. Part of that's the rebounding and kicking it out. Part of that's just losing your man on defense. It's not very good. And then when they do get to the free throw line, they don't make it. It's like 62.5%. They're just not taking advantage of any of the opportunities, because they actually force more turnovers than they do turnover, but they're not doing anything with it. So I don't know that any team cares. I just think UIC is going to be enough to win this by a handful of points, and we'll go home happy.
Yeah, like you said, UIC is not of the caliber to win by 20 like some of those other teams are. We talked about the Missouri Valley and all those teams at the top. This was at the bottom of that conference, of course. I guess my question is, I don't quite understand how you play this fast with such a bad offense. Like, I get how you play this fast with the bad defense, because what that tells you is that other teams are having quick possessions because they're getting quick open looks. So to some extent, when you have a bad defense, it's going to reflect in that you quote unquote play fast. And it may not be that you play fast. It's just that the other teams are scoring so quick. So I get that. What I'm confused about is how they're having so quick offensive possessions when they're so bad. It's almost like they're just dribbling out and just jacking it up, and they don't really care. And it's like, I don't quite understand, like, what is the game plan here for such a terrible offense playing with any bit of pace like this? It doesn't make any sense to me.
It's like their coach watched Nate Oates go and like, ooh, I can do that with my team, and then didn't realize he did not have that kind of talent.
And it's like, you can, if you have these guys playing against D3 kids, absolutely, you could totally do that, right? But they're not. They're going up against much better competition, unfortunately. So we like UIC to win there, laying a 1.5. Pretty strong play from us. That's all we've got then, Jake. Any parting words?
No. I would just, from what I remember, Cousin Jared killed the Daytona 500 with his preview there. So, I mean, that's another reason to join the Patreon. You get NASCAR stuff now, apparently.
Apparently, yeah. Like I said, there's golf talk in the Discord chat, and we've been doing a lot of tennis, and it's a lot of fun over there. A good group of people talking about sports betting, have a lot of fun. So check it out if you haven't yet. That's all we got then for you. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Picks with the Professor. Don't forget to subscribe so you can enjoy all the sports betting content provided on this channel. It's dropped right into your feed. Be back again tomorrow with more college basketball betting tips. And until then, as always, best of luck. And remember, you can get your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.